Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Ecclesiastes chapter 6. I'm going to try to get through chapter 6 and chapter 7 today, but I won't promise. So let's get right to it. Ecclesiastes chapter 6. Verse 1. Here is a tragedy I have observed under the sun, and it weighs heavily on humanity. God gives man riches, wealth, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all he desires for himself. But God does not allow him to enjoy them. Instead, a stranger will enjoy them. This is fruitful and is a sickening tragedy. Now, again, you would note Solomon was an extremely wealthy man. And so when he says that God, when he speaks kind of frequently of God giving men wealth. Well, not everyone had wealth. Certainly, for example, the servants that served him, when the Queen of Sheba came and saw his servants, they were decked out. They served him well. They took great pride in their service. But remember, they were servants. So again, this is just a matter of perspective here when he says this, mainly of himself. Now, that's it. I don't know how to relate to this since I'm not a wealthy man. Verse 3. A man may father 100 children. Excuse me. A man may father 100. Oh, excuse me. A man may father 100 children and live many years. No matter how long he lives, if he's not satisfied by good things, he does not even have a proper burial. I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. Again, matter of perspective. I'd rather have the wealth and to be suffering his dilemma here than not to have a left. Now, he does say, again, a stillborn or a person, a child that is born dead, of course, that's better off than he. Again, that's a matter of perspective. I kind of would dispute this, though. Like, for example, what problems did Solomon have? One, his his wealth provided an extremely unbelievable opulent life, and I would say at the expense of others. He taxed the people. As I said, he was one of the ones guilty of one of the statements he made by oppressing people. And one of the ways he oppressed them was overtaxing them to enjoy his opulent life. Again, this is a matter of perspective here. Verse 4. For he comes in futility and he goes in darkness, and his name is shrouded in darkness, though a stillborn does not see the sun and is not conscious. It has more rest than he. Now, again, this is a matter of perspective because, again, how did he know that? Unless God gives him the revelation. But this was their perspective. Again, from the physical realm, this is how they viewed existence. Okay. Verse 6. I want to go back and say something because in verse 3, I kind of want to make. Notice he says, a man may father 100 children. Only a person like Solomon can say that. He had 700 wives. So that feat in itself was sort of more attainable to Solomon, okay, than the average man. All right. Now, verse 6. And if he lives 1,000 years twice, but does not experience happiness, do not both go to the same place? Excellent observation. But all of the wealth, he said, if you live 1,000 years, but you don't experience happiness. And of course, you can even ask the question, what makes happiness? Verse 7. All man's labor is for his stomach, yet the appetite is never satisfied. Hmm. That is true when you think about when you work up hunger. Verse 8. What advantage then does the wise man have over the fool? What advantage is there for a person who knows how to conduct himself before others? Better what the eye see than the wandering desires. This too is futile in the pursuit of the wind. Now, notice he said, what advantage does the wise have over the fool? In other words, what advantage? Now, it's kind of interesting because that's true in that you can be in the same place at the same time. One can be wise, one can be fool. Both can suffer the same fate, right? Um, think about this. If you were on the plane in 9/11, one of the planes that crashed into the towers in 9/11, you could have been on a plane um, with a fool. You could be wise, you could be a fool, but you suffered the same plight. Better yet, we know, for example, the sinking of the Titanic. Many wealthy people went down, wealthy men especially, went down and drowned along with fools, along with those who were not wealthy. They both suffered the same uh, experience, death. Verse 10. What exists was given its name long ago, and it is known what man is, but he is not able to contend with one stronger than he. The one there is capitalized, as you can see, which signifies that he's referring to God. For when there are many words, they increase futility. What is the advantage? What is the advantage for man? For who knows what is good for man in life, in the few days of his futile life that he spends like a shadow? Who can tell man what will happen after him under the sun? Now, you can't. You think about a funeral. Not do. Sometimes I'm getting older. You think about a funeral, and you think about I see funerals. I've been to funerals, right? But I'm thinking if I was the one in the coffin, I would not see any of this. I would not experience any of the, whether it's grand funerals or whatever. You got state funerals, right? I'm in one funeral where they, you know, open like carriage drawn coffins and stuff. But the dead doesn't see any of that. And so, in other words, Solomon is experiencing all these things and go, well, what's this all about? What is the true meaning of life? Chapter 7, verse 1. A good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of one's death than the day of one's birth. Now, of course, Solomon seems to be experiencing a lot of internal anguish. In other words, in no amount of opulence, of wealth, or fame doesn't seem to help him. You can't give him an answer to that. But he said a good name is better than fine perfume. That's true. But notice this, kind of grim. And the day of one's death is than the day of one. In the day of one's death than the day of one's birth. Now again, that's perspective according to if you are right with God. He said, it is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, since that is the end of all mankind, which meaning mourning, which means death, right? And the living should take it to heart. Grief is better than laughter, for when a face is sad, a heart may be glad. I'm not sure I understand exactly what he means by that. Verse 4, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, and the heart of fools is in the heart of pleasure. And again, a matter of perspective. It is true in some cases, but it's not true in every case. But it's certainly true. Verse 5, it is better to listen to rebuke from a wise person than to listen to a song of fools. Okay? Kind of remind us back in the book of Proverbs, right? what a fool is. A fool is a person who does not believe in God, who does not believe God, and he doesn't obey God. That's a fool. Verse 6. For like the crackling of burning thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of a fool. This too is futile. Now, the idea is that his point here is that because they exist right along with the wise, this is futile. Verse 7. Surely the practice of extortions turns a wise person into a fool, and a bribe destroys the mind. Uh, Verse 8. The end of the matter is better than its beginning. A patient spirit is better than a proud spirit. Remember, pride goes before a fall, and you can't. In a proud person does not see his fall coming. Okay, a a a a a, a prideful person. Verse 9. Don't let your spirit rush to be angry, for anger abides in the heart of fools, and of course that will bring a lot of heartache and damage to your life. Don't say, why were the former days better than these? Since it is not wise of you to ask this. Now go back to that statement. How many times do we say that? Why were the former days better than these? I know we say this all the time. Man, look about the good old days. Well, and if you really think about it, no, the good old days, those what you call good old days, no. There are always better days. We always can reminisce on the past. But sometimes we forget to realize just, well, things could have been a lot better. A lot better. Verse 11. Wisdom is as good as an inheritance and an advantage to those who see the sun. Because wisdom is protection as money is protection. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of its owner. Now, this is so true because I think about people who go through heartaches, hardships that they were foolish enough to bring on themselves. Verse 13, consider the work of God, for who can straighten out what he has made crooked? You can't. Verse 14, in the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the days of adversity consider, God has made the one as well as the other, so that man cannot discover anything that will come after. Now again, he's speaking from this side of life. For example, what did Solomon know what his sons would do with the kingdom? We know because we can read about it. Verse 15. In my feudal life, I have seen everything. Now, Solomon, with all his wealth and with the opportunities, with the advantages he had because of his wealth, he said, I have seen everything. He said, there is a righteous man who perished in spite of his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who lived long in spite of his evil. That is true. Don't be excessively righteous, and don't be overly wise. Why should you destroy yourself? Now, this is a very interesting statement here. Don't be overly righteous and don't be overly wise. Meaning what? I'm going to say, don't express that, because people won't like you when you do. Okay? Verse 17, don't be excessively wicked and don't be foolish. Why should you die before your time? It is good that you grasp the one and don't let the other slip from your hand. For the one who fears God will end up with both of them. That's some deep words. You can just kind of ponder that. Again, these are words of general wisdom. All right, verse 19. Wisdom makes a wise man stronger when 10 rulers. Wisdom makes a wise man stronger than 10 rulers of a city. Verse 10. There is certainly no righteous man on the earth, who does. I'm sorry. No, verse 20 again. There is certainly no righteous man on the earth who does good and never sins. Now that's a universal truth. There is not a righteous man on earth who does good and never sins. In other words, everyone sins. You're lying and you're a hypocrite if you say otherwise. Don't pay attention to everything people say, or you may hear your servants cursing you. For you know many times you yourself have cursed others. Amen, right? How many times? In other words, you come across a secret, you overhear people. Notice what he says, don't pay attention to it. And sometimes you may hear people talk about you and criticize you. Notice he said your servants, your friends, right? You may hear people criticize you. In our day, sometimes you could butt dial a person and hear this, right? I mean, um, but he says, don't pay attention to it. Okay? Don't pay attention to it. Verse 23. I have tested all this by wisdom. I resolved I would be wise, but it was beyond me. What exists is beyond reach and very deep. Who can discover it? I turn my thoughts to know, explore, and seek wisdom, and an explanation for things, and to know that wickedness is stupidity and folly and madness. And I find more bitter than death the woman who is a trap, her heart a net, her hands are chains. The one who pleases God will escape her, but the sinner will be captured by her. Now you remember the first like 9 chapters of Proverbs, the book of Proverbs talks about this kind of woman who can ensnare a man, trap a man. Verse 27, look, says the teacher, I have discovered this by adding one thing to another to find out the explanation, which my soul continually searches for but does not find. Among 1,000 people I have found one true man, but among all these I have not found a true woman. Ouch, Solomon, right? Um, well, also keep this in perspective because he did say, the same Solomon, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, right? He who finds a good wife finds a good thing. And in fact, it says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor of the Lord. So if we keep this in perspective here, you have to say, if I, as a sinful man, or a foolish man, or a man who is not seeking God, no, I can never find a true woman. And to be fair, yes, women on the other side can say the same thing. Verse 29, only see this. I have discovered that God made people upright, but they pursue many schemes. Okay? He's not saying that man is good in himself. But again, back to this, I have not found a true woman. Now, it's kind of unique because remember, Solomon had 1,000 of them at least, minimum. I should put it like this: he probably had more. But he had 1,000 wives. Well, he had 700 wives, 300 concubines. Okay, so of course he wasn't going to find a true woman. In fact, they were at the end because they were not godly women. Some of the 1,000 women that he had, most of them were pagan. Some of them he could have married for. Back then, they would marry because of to forge political alliances. That was folly on his part because he should have known he had God. And no doubt some of them were with lust. Probably every one of them were fine. Every single one of them were fine. But notice what he's saying right here. I have not found a true woman. That's your fault. That's your fault. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP The Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.